In most families, holidays and special occasions are a time to feel joy, happiness, connection, laughter. By nature, it's supposed to be a special time. But what if I told you that there are some family members that actually thrive on making you feel so much discomfort that you're unable to even enjoy the special occasion? So yes, I am talking about people that are high on the scale of NPD. They use special occasions to dysregulate you in an effort to regulate themselves. So if you have to be around people that are difficult this time of year, I'm going to talk about why they do what they do, how they do this, how they dysregulate you to regulate themselves, and more importantly, what you can do to take your power back starting now. So let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a survivor myself of emotional trauma. I'm a trauma-informed coach and a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm also the founder of the School of Transformation, which is where I teach people how to apply everything they learn in regards to healing after narcissistic abuse and childhood trauma. There's currently a 40% off sale that is good now until January 15th. So if you're looking for live affordable help, come join me every week on Zoom. Anyone that's high on the scale of NPD struggles with their own emotional regulation because they themselves have never learned how to process and be with their own strong emotions. They don't know how to do that. They never learned for whatever reason. And so they're kind of like a pressure cooker, constantly needing relief. But instead of processing their own emotions, they find relief by flinging them or offloading them onto you. Because if they can make you react, then that somehow relieves their inner pressure and they feel calm. Even though it's only temporary, they experience a shift and they're like, oh, so-and-so's reacting, they're upset, that must mean I'm fine. This is actually called emotional dumping. Now, the reason it's so important to understand that this is their motive is because when you don't understand it, yes or no in the comment section below if this has ever happened to you. I know with myself, when I didn't understand it, guess what I did? Well, I tried harder and harder to do something to find the right formula so that they could be happy and not do anything unkind or anything that would cause me to be dysregulated. In other words, I was kind of doing the same thing by trying to regulate them so that they wouldn't try to dysregulate me. Sounds confusing, right? But let me know if this resonates in the comment section below. You see, when we don't understand it, we make it mean something painful about us, or we get so busy trying to avoid them acting like them. When we do understand it, it is so freeing, so liberating, because instead of trying to get them to not act like that, we let them be whoever they want to be, but we stay us. That's the secret. So let's shift into some of the things they do to try to dysregulate you, and then we will definitely move into how to take your power back. One of the ways narcissistic family members try to destabilize you is by dismissing or ignoring you, or flat out stonewalling you. So if it's in a group setting, they will just talk and talk and talk to everyone and act as if you're invisible. Now, sometimes people don't even notice this. How they don't notice this, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that if they're not familiar with manipulation, they don't get it. But anyone that has been through this, not only do we see it when it's done to us, but we can see it when it's done to other people as well. But they will absolutely talk and be so sweet and so kind to everyone else so that when you talk about them and you're like, wow, but so-and-so, like they just flat out ignore me. The other person has such a different experience that it's really hard for them to even give you any kind of validation. And so that leaves you feeling not only dismissed and ignored by the narcissist, but misunderstood by others, maybe even judged by others, and flat out confused. Now, for the times that you actually do get a word in edgewise, then what they'll do is they'll act as if they didn't hear you or as if you didn't say anything. People listen when another person talks. Narcissists don't listen, they pause. It's as if they pause what they were saying, they allow you to speak because maybe other people are noticing, and at that moment, stonewalling you is impossible. So they allow you to say something, and then they go on as if you didn't say a word. And so what they're doing is they're dismissing you by pretending your opinions or even your presence doesn't matter. And so what this can do is it can trigger a belief, I don't matter. Trust me, when they do this, it's not random. It's not accidental. It's on purpose because they're playing on your deep emotional wounds. The sad reality is that people that are high on the scale of NPD do this on purpose because making you feel invisible makes them feel powerful and in control. The second thing that they'll often do during the holidays is they will have subtle chronic jabs in an effort to cause you to react. They are notorious for saying things that seem innocent, but that are actually designed to intentionally poke at your old wounds. For example, think of some of the subtle things that you've heard throughout the years and make sure you share some of those below, but I'll share some here. For example, they may say something like, oh wow, you're really brave to wear that outfit. Still single? Must be really hard this time of year. Or as they're eating the food that you prepared, rather than saying a word about what you prepared and the food that they're eating right now, they will go on and on and on about somebody else's meal or what somebody else did. And so it seems so subtle and it feels uncomfortable to even say like, oh, that makes me feel uncomfortable because it's done so covertly that other people don't notice it. And you almost actually feel guilty for feeling bad about what they're doing to you. So what's their goal when they're doing this? They are trying to covertly hurt you enough so that you overtly react and look like the problem. So they can step back and point the finger and be like, what's wrong with that person? And so what they're doing is that they're actually inducing an amygdala hijacking in you so that you wind up acting out of pain instead of logic. And then they use that against you. And then the third tactic that they use, not that this is an all-inclusive list, but just for the sake of this video, the third one I'm going to mention today is their use of changing behaviors depending on their audience. As you know, narcissists can play dirty. And so when no one is watching, they might criticize you, belittle you, shame you, treat you horrible. But as soon as someone is there, or as soon as there's an audience, they're overtly sweet. Oh, Michele is so thoughtful. Michele is so amazing. And so this contrast that can sometimes happen in the blink of an eye can actually leave you questioning your own reality, wondering if you're overreacting, wondering if the problem really is you. And so what's happening is that they're managing their image while creating a lot of emotional unbalance inside of you. I imagine all of this sounds familiar if you're watching my video. So let's shift into what to do when you have to be around people that do this to you. Now, the old way of doing things, right, was let's try to do something to help them stay calm. Let me find some way of being so that they're happy so that I'm okay. No, that's the old way. The new way has nothing to do with trying to control them. The new way is learning how to stay grounded inside of yourself even when someone else is trying to destabilize you. And we're going to look at it through the lens of somatic experiencing, which, by the way, if you do not know what somatic experiencing is and how it can help your nervous system to heal after narcissistic abuse, I'm going to leave a link here for you to be able to learn more about it. Tip number 1 is to learn to pause and notice when you're triggered. Usually when we're triggered, it's unconscious and we tend to go horizontal. We look at the person that triggered us. We look at the external. But healing and staying grounded is about taking it vertical. And it's about going inside and asking yourself, what is this trigger? What belief might be getting kicked on from my past? Along with uncovering the unconscious belief, you can learn to identify the emotion. Ask yourself, like, what am I feeling? And there's a phrase, name it to tame it. When we can notice our emotions instead of coming from the emotion, we now have space between us, our reaction, and the emotion. And in that space, we can learn to show up differently even when somebody's triggering us. Tip number 2 is about grounding yourself physically. You see, when we're triggered, and we get that amygdala hijacking, there's a biology to trauma, right? It gets turned on in our body. Even our breathing changes. We start breathing from our chest. It's very shallow. That type of breathing is signaling to the brain we're not safe. So grounding ourselves physically by changing our breathing will signal to our brain that we are safe. Now, I'm going to be dead honest. Most people that learn this think that this is a tool to pull out when they're triggered. Let me tell you, the hardest time to ground yourself physically is when you are at that heightened state of being triggered. And so rather than only learning to ground yourself when you're triggered, the best way to use this tool is to do it regularly on a daily basis so that when you're triggered, your body has learned and put down the tracks to this new grounded behavior. Now, if you're familiar with these tools and you're like, oh, but these don't work for me, I want to invite you to the School of Transformation because that's where we learn how to apply them. And we work through any resistance and any challenges that come up when we're learning these new behaviors. By the way, I have a free workshop the first Friday of the month. I'm going to leave the registration link there for you. In that free workshop, I'm going to talk about the difference between just learning cognitively tools that help and actually learning how to embody them. So make sure you come join me for that free live workshop. And then the third tip is about learning how to put down and enforce boundaries without having to over-explain yourself. And the last tip I'm going to mention is about limiting exposure. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to talk to people in the group that feel good to talk to. You don't have to force things with a person that is intentionally trying to make it difficult for you. Your mental health is a priority. Once again, if you're struggling with how to apply all the things that you're learning when it comes to healing after narcissistic abuse, make sure you come join me live weekly on Zoom in the School of Transformation. But if you're unable to join me, in conclusion, the best takeaway from this video is to remember that narcissistic family members are going to be who you know them to be. And they're going to continue to try to regulate themselves by dysregulating you. But the good news is that you don't have to play their game. Remember, you do matter, and by staying grounded, you can reclaim your peace. And that's the best gift you can give yourself during any special occasion. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonates. Your peace is your power.